What is up? Welcome to this week's episode of the Vanflip podcast. I'm your host, LURK, and today I'm sitting with Stu from SpiritWorld. I don't know if you coined the term or if you invented the term, but Deathwestern is basically kind of like what, everyone refers to SpiritWorld's music as. It's a toss-up between, like, your love of, like, Westerns, country music, and, heavy and extreme music. So did you coin that term, or is that something that just was thrown on?
Yeah, for better or worse, I had that as like possibly like a song title on our last record. And when we were doing a meeting with our A&R guy and the folks at Century Media and some like management folks, they were asking about maybe they were asking for like a genre thing, like what is this that you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, I just do whatever, but I got this working song title, Deathwestern, that I think is going to be the album title. And then they kind of ran with that as saying like, you know, we're a Deathwestern band.
Yeah.
Which I get it. It's easy to market stuff if it sounds cool, so I don't mind. But the real answer is I just do whatever I want,
Yeah.
And so people got to put you somewhere. So I'm glad to be called. At least I had some hand in what is attached to me, because there's a lot of folks that don't get that, privilege. So I'll take it.
So at this particular moment, you've got a couple, I think a single out off the new the new upcoming album, Eldorado. Again, fitting the theme of the Western vibes with Eldorado, a play on words. But you the latest single, is it? Oh man, Abilene Grime. Is that how you pronounce that? Abilene Grime.
Yeah.
And that's
yeah, exactly.
And again, your new album's coming out March 21st through Century Media. You've already mentioned your relationship with them. What is the biggest? I mean, we'll just jump right into the new album, and then we'll kind of touch base on some other stuff as we get further in the podcast. Just so because it's coming out in the near future. What's the biggest, change from Deathwestern to Eldorado? Would you say?
Have you heard the record yet?
Yeah, I've listened to it all day today.
Yeah. Well, I'll say the biggest thing is like if you followed the band from the beginning, there's definitely a return to some of the more cowpunky stuff from the demo is here. And then there's also some stuff that, there's definitely some stuff with like some sax and some like finger picked, straight country stuff. I didn't try and do like traditional country songs. They're all kind of pulling other influences in there. But where Deathwestern and Pagan Rhythms they had some like things, very small interludes and some like intro stuff that maybe incorporated roots music.
Mm-hmm.
This one has some fully fleshed out songs. Most of it is still like in the same vein as Deathwestern and Pagan Rhythms. A lot of like heavy thrash, hardcore, death metal, stuff. But then also the vocal delivery on this one, I think, compared to the last two, is a lot different. And mainly that's just because I write all the songs, I do it all, and kind of the vocal stuff is, if we're being honest, it's like a good song for me is the riffs. And so when you start laying the vocals on it, I work for a living. Like I've played shows in other bands and stuff, but like I'm not one of those vocal dudes. You know what I mean? Like I don't sit here trying to make cool monster sounds, and
you're just using the voice as is.
Yeah, so for me, I come from the punk rock like background of the front man can totally just whatever you're feeling at the moment, hit record and kind of do. And so on the last couple albums, I worked a lot with Sam Pura, and he is a real his productions, like he really likes to have clean, big things, likes to layer a lot of elements, the quad tracking guitars, vocals are going to be, I think on Pagan Rhythms, I had 6 vocal tracks on a lot of that stuff. And so it's like you got a main, you got a double, then you got a stereo pair, and each one of them I'm screaming a little different, and then he layers them, and, he may treat the stereo ones with more saturation or something. But for me personally, on Deathwestern Pagan Rhythms, I was trying to find something aggressive that I like that sounds like some, stuff that I'd listen to that I would dig, but I was never really comfortable with how it was coming out.
Mm.
And then you find that out when you start touring and you have to kind of do these things live. And one, it's not fun.
Mm.
And so I'm at the point in my life where if something isn't fun, I do something else.
Yeah.
You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah, for sure, for sure.
And so with this album too, I recorded most of the vocals at my house. Just we spent a lot of time recording, but it's one of those things where you're spending so much time on the drum tracking and guitars and all this stuff. It was kind of nice to be able to, in the downtime, because I traveled from Las Vegas to Fremont, California to record with Sam.
Hmm.
So that, because I got a studio set up in my house now, it's nice to be able to work at my own pace here. So I think those are the main things. The musical styles is definitely a much wider array than on the last two records. And then also, I think the vocals are more, I tried to make it a point to write a little more, maybe catchier and just do what felt good to like coming out of my mouth. That seems stupid to say in a band, but it is important to be like, I have to go sing these songs. So I wanted to do something that I thought sounded cool, was more intelligible so that the words come across. But I hate clean singing bands.
Mm.
Like, I mean, no judging on anybody, but like, that's where like I tuned out of metalcore. Like
I get you. Yeah.
I like stuff like Ringworm and stuff, but when people start doing the radio rock clean singing, like that never is something I'm into. And so for me, like I try to only do stuff that I like. And so that means I'm much more of a street punk oi guy than I am clean singing guy.
Yeah.
So I would rather sound like my catchy clean singing be more in that vein of like a street punk band or a punk band than a.
Yeah. It certainly is. Yeah, it definitely is too. And the reason why I led off with that question is because not that there is such a drastic change between Deathwestern and Eldorado, but it definitely seems more mature, like more well-rounded. Like you already said, there's different elements that stand out probably more on this record than the last one. The saxophone was definitely one that caught me off guard. Not that it catches me off guard, because for some reason saxophone has kind of like made its way into metal as well. There's a lot of bands that kind of incorporate that. And luckily they all pull it off quite well. I mean, I'm sure there's a handful that just fucking don't, but this album is going to be another one of those notches on that belt where it does pull off very well. And it's not like overly saturated throughout the album. I think it's like a song may have a part that has a saxophone in it or whatnot. But what I will say is like, you asked me if I've heard the record. I was able to listen to it for like hours on repeat today without it, being an issue of having to change like a song or change the album off altogether. So, I was really excited to see what would happen in this next chapter as far as SpiritWorld is concerned, because it's a very interesting project. I'll call it band or project, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, you are the mastermind and the driving force behind everything. But as you can see on the album credits and when you play live, you kind of have like a rotating cast of, characters that kind of lend their services and whatnot to you on a regular basis. So like, I guess what I'd like to know is, how did the idea of, SpiritWorld really come together? Because I know you kind of started to do some stuff in the late 2010s, like 2017, and then, the pandemic times, you kind of had Pagan, and then Deathwestern was kind of coming out the end of that. But how did the whole like idea and formation of the project come about, and how do you go about selecting like who you call upon to do, whether it's studio work or live work?
Yeah, so my boy Matt Shrum, that he was at the end of my old band Folsom, he was filling in because my brother Nick, my twin brother Bees and my older brother Nick played in Folsom with me. And when Nick had his daughter, then Matt filled in because we were like going to Europe and touring and doing stuff, and his band had just broken up. And so he actually moved to Las Vegas maybe 2015, something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but um, I hadn't really wanted to do a band because I'm just kind of if I do something, then I tend to just, that's what I do, you know?
Yeah.
And so having a band that kind of got to the point where we were able to tour and do some cool stuff, I never really got it out of my system, so to speak, you know?
Yeah, no, I get that.
Then when Matt was here, we were messing around, and I'm like, well, I had all these songs, and so I wrote all this stuff, and we did the demo, and we played one show with my friends in Power Trip, and down here locally, Vegas is really tough for DIY shows, just because venues and things, it's really sucks. And so I've been involved booking shows and stuff and forever. And some friends of mine now, they book all the like real hardcore shows. Dustin and Aaron and Justin Fornoff from Wrist Meat Razor.
Yeah.
So those kids all started out going to shows I booked when I was young and doing DIY shows. But so they were booking Power Trip, and I was really good friends with Riley and just like loved that band. So I was like, well, cool, let's play this. Even though we're like a cowpunk band, like that'll be our first show. So I got the demo out and we played it. And then I really had a great time. And we played one more show and we're like thinking about doing a full length. But at the time, like I was still partying and stuff. And I just kind of had a personal stuff too. But I just got to the point in my life where I was like, what am I missing? What do I need to do to like be fulfilled a little bit more? You know, I have a good career. I've got a great partner, like all these things. But I'm like, if I'm going to do a band, I do not want to be, I don't want my band and partying and staying out late and all the drama and all the shit that I don't like. Like if I'm going to do a band, I got to do it in a way that serves my own like fulfillment, creativity, and being inspired. And part of that is having control over things, not having to compromise songwriting with people that don't get it, that are in your band, and then they get a voice because they're your bros and you're in a van. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I just, from having experience, I kind of was like, I'm going to get sober 100%. And I kind of came to the realization of my life that I don't moderate. And so I pumped the brakes and was like, we played one more show with Citizen and Culture Abuse, who I love. Great show. And we had like a great reaction. And I'm like, wow, this band has something here. But I'm not like, I was just honest with myself. I wasn't ready to go do that, be hanging out in bars. And I probably wouldn't have been able to maintain sobriety had I started that band, put out a full length, started touring in bars, right? Mm-hmm. So that was a piece of it. And then because of that, we didn't play another show for a while. And in the meantime, I'm like, if I'm going to do a band and I'm going to do like a cowpunk band, like you get pigeonholed in whatever you do. So I'm like, if I'm going to do a band and I'm going to like put energy into it, I want to be able to do all the shit that I like. So what do I like? And how do I make it all work? And then I also had always wanted to write some fiction and do like some sort of a Western novel or a horror Western or something of that ilk. And in the back of my mind, I've always like had this little writer in here saying, you should write something. And I've never done it. And so I just challenged myself to be like, let's do it. Let's go full in and do the weirdest, whatever I love creatively. If I'm going to be artistic, let's just go all in. And so somehow through all of this like distillation of crazy things that don't seem like they go together, I started writing these short stories that have these like cowboys and Comanches and like occult elements and like the end of the world happening. And then I'm like playing guitar. I finally bought a guitar, so I had a really nice Telecaster. When I was writing stuff in Folsom, I was always borrowing guitars and shit. And so I had this really nice playing guitar, and so I was just riffing. And the most fun I was having was playing like Slayer, death metal shit. And so then because there's no rules when you make up songs and do what you want. So I somehow ended up on this, where we're at now, where I have these like this trilogy of concept records, all based around horror, Western, fiction writing that are incorporating different things of elements of like death metal, thrash, you know.
Yeah. Is the
So
storyline? Oh, go ahead. Finish.
so I mean, it's like that's one part of it. That's how we got here. But then, as you record a record, right? So then I go do Pagan Rhythms with my boy Sam Pura, and it's just me and him basically. With I demoed all the shit out. We go record it. It's a better sounding version of the demo, but I didn't have a drummer, and so it's like we want to get live drums. I'm not into program drums really, and so we got Thomas Pridgeon, who you know has played in Mars Volta,
Yep.
Suicidal. I mean, incredible. One of the best drummers there is. He came in, did half of it. A really great drummer named Adam Elliott, awesome dude with ties. We go back, like he was in metalcore bands and stuff. That great guy. He did half the drums, and so finding the like studio musicians, it's all just how anything gets done. One guy wants to do something and is bankrolling it and is passionate, and then other people just you find where there's a will, there's a way. And so between Sam Pura being best friends and being like, yo, let me hit up Thomas Pridgeon. He'll probably roll over, smoke some blunts, crush these drums, like it'll be great.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of make shit happen, But then we get offered tours. So I make a record, the whole world shuts down.
Yeah.
Right. So you got a pandemic going. And it's like, should I wait until the pandemic stops before I put this out? And for whatever reason, I think it worked for us. I just said, I'm going to put it out anyways. I don't care.
Yeah.
And then that record kind of blew up. Century Media.
You're talking about Pagan, right? You're talking about the Pagan.
Yeah, Pagan Rhythms was released DIY originally, and then they re-released it like a year later, right? And so when that happened, then everything started falling into place where like a really great booking agent, Nick Storch, loves the record. And he's like, I'm on the phone with him, and he's like, so what is this? Like, can you tour? And I'm like, yeah. And of course, I had not talked to anybody about going on tour. And then you have to do those things too, where I'm like, absolutely, yeah, I got a band.
Yeah, you just push yourself to make it happen.
Yeah, you get off the phone, and then I call Matt, and I call my brother, and I'm like, yo, we got a tour with Obituary. You guys have any capacity to do this? And then they're like, fuck yeah, let's do it. Yeah. And then we added, the pieces that you need. Like Preston's was in the best ska band in town and great drummer. So yeah, I got lucky because I made all the stuff, and then I got to handpick who I wanted to be in a band with, instead of maybe you're in a band with people that you don't really love, and then it blows up and you're just like, you start rocky. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting too, because do you ever foresee the project being more of like a collaborative effort, or is it just something that, the right or maybe the right person has to understand, what you're going for and what the overall project is before they even attempt to have like you said, a voice or something like that in the band. But what is your outlook and forecast for that? Is it do you like doing it all yourself and then setting the pieces where it lay?
I mean, yes and no. I really like to just hide out and make art. So, I mean, that's something that I probably spend way more energy and time than anybody else I know. So if somebody comes up with something and wants to do it, I'm not opposed. There's no rules. Like if somebody came to me with a great idea and a great song or whatever it may be, of course I'd be into exploring anything. But as it stands, we're busy. We're all grown ass dudes that there's kids and families and careers, and now that we're touring and doing stuff, it's a big time commitment. And so if somebody gets to the place in their life where they're going to spend 100 hours on a guitar mining for gold, then hell yeah. But at this point, it's I'm asking a lot of them to learn all this stuff. And, next year we'll probably, who knows, we'll play between 60 and 100 shows. And that's a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's one every couple of days, basically.
Yeah. So it's for me, there's no rules. And I've played music with these people and hung out in vans my whole life at this point. So it's whatever they want to do. If somebody's doing something inspiring, I'm totally down to ride or help them execute their thing too,
Yeah. And you don't have to answer this particular question, but I just thought of it because we were talking about, the writing process and putting out the records. But how does because I know you have studio musicians that come and play. Are those hired on the spot? Like, are those hired guns technically on the spot? Or does that equate to credits in the songs and however, whatever royalties come through for Spirit World, is that divvied up through the cast of characters, or is it just going to the main songwriter person, you or whatnot?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty simple because there's not much money on that end of things. It's not like
totally
we
get it.
have
I was just curious.
billions of streams and there's money. You know what I
No, I
mean?
understand.
So it's more so making a record and um the dude Jericho that played some organ on here.
Mm-hmm.
I had some MIDI keyboard and organ parts already mapped out, and I'm had the samples, but they're in the wrong key or maybe want a different patch, And Sam had bought a Mellotron at some point since the last time I was there that he was all excited about, and he's making a record with this dude, and this guy and his wife are really talented musicians, and they're hanging out one day, and it's just yo, you want to throw down some organ on this song? And the guy's like, hell yeah. So I mean, in that regard, we're all punk rockers. Everybody has jobs. Nobody's making money off this, so it's pretty straightforward. And the band, the way it's set up, because I've just been around the block, so I kind of understand. So when we tour, I pay everybody in the band and try and do it in a way where I absorb all the costs, front everything, and everything we make from Spirit World, I just put back into it. And when you do things like we're doing, our suits and the stage stuff, I mean, honestly, it costs more than other bands spend on their whole record.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
For sure.
And so I'm investing all of that money, and then I want to get it to the point where the bigger the band gets, the more the guys get paid. And I think that's probably the fairest way to do it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but as far as studio musicians, it's all basically songs are done and we have ideas. So it could be pedal steel, it could be keyboard, it could be saxophone. And it's who do we have available that's cool, that's willing to, make a little music with us. And we got really lucky with our lead guitar player, Randy Moore, who he's just a kindred spirit, little rockabilly horror punk kid that loves Metallica and Merciful Fate, and just the best guy. And so he was able to shred a ton of solos. He did most of them on this record, and he toured with us a bunch. And he's playing rhythm guitar now in another giant band of anonymous rock stars that I'm not sure if I know the secret's out, but I guess I'm not supposed to say it. But so anyways, it's he's also now a really bona fide rock star playing arenas.
Right.
And so,
I think I know. I think I know who you're talking about, but we'll leave it under the wraps for now.
Yeah, and I don't know how that works. I don't want to make anybody mad, but I'm just happy for my friends to do cool shit. And so that's one of the things. It's we're getting ready to tour with Sepultura. Randy calls me, has this incredible opportunity, heading to Europe to go learn a 90-minute show. It's amazing. Yeah. Proud of you. I'll find next man up that can get these solos going. All good, brother.
Since you brought up guitar playing and solos and stuff like that, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I probably should have revisited Deathwestern a little bit today as well, because I was just so caught up with the Eldorado today. But were there dive bomb? I feel like there was a lot more dive bombs on Deathwestern. Is that something that I didn't really catch on the new record, or am I just daydreaming there was?
No. We had so many dive bombs.
Okay.
I love the dive bombs, but part of that is Randy came in and he had a couple. I think we did most of his stuff in a couple hours this time. Where on Deathwestern, maybe he was in the studio hanging out with us for 3 days over a
Gotcha.
thing. And part of that is the songs are a little different. And
for sure.
I guess as my songwriting changes and evolves, I'm trying to do more of when you have too much shit going on, nothing stands out and it's tough to mix. So I'm trying to write more intentionally where it's like certain things, you know? And so I think there's less dive bombs, but there's still dive bombs, and we are a dive bomb band, and I love it. But I don't think anybody's ever put more dive bombs on a record than Deathwestern.
That's what
Maybe.
that's what I was kind of like. I was like daydreaming in my head. I'm like, I remember it just being like dive bomb heavy, and because like it seems like a lot of bands in the last like 5 years have really adopted and brought back the dive bomb. Like you didn't really hear a lot of that, you know, in the 2000s era for the most part, but it was like an 80s 90s thing that you would just have dive bombs, and then it just kind of like resurrected itself in the last handful of years. So I didn't know if like, you know, what the theory was behind all that, but I'm glad I wasn't just hallucinating that there were massive dive bombs on the last record.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a dive bomb count anywhere, but I would say if you go Deathwestern to El Dorado, like maybe we get a D plus on amount of dive bombs, you know?
Compared to A plus on Deathwestern.
Yeah, yeah.
You were talking about the fictional writing and stories and whatnot. Now forgive me because I don't dive deep into all the records that I listen to, and especially like lyrics and stuff like that. But is there an overarching story, or is it just a different story per album? Like, because you have concept albums, is it just like an overarching kind of storyline that you just kind of grow onto?
Yeah,
Or?
so there's one world, right? So we have the world of all this is happening in, and so I put out a collection of short stories, and so there's I don't know how many characters are in there, but say there's like 15 point of view characters in those short stories. Then the songs sometimes come from those or things that have happened after or before, and then there's new characters that have been developed that are in there. And then I'm also working on a novel that at some point it's tough balancing all this, and so I sort of want to wait until the band kind of hits a somewhat of a zenith of like size and then drop the novel, because you don't get to do your first book twice, right?
Right.
And so in my mind, if everything goes great and like the dream is just like realized, I would get this work done, put it out, and it would like get out there and be up for like Stoker Awards, and you know,
Is it
you
more,
know, like really do it
yeah,
at
do
a
a
high
proper
level.
release?
And
A
so
proper
kind
release.
of that's the plan. So these three albums are like a trilogy in that world, all dealing with the same themes, different characters, but at different times, you know?
Yeah. Where does the inspiration for that kind of world come from? Do you have like do you read a lot of fiction, or do you know, I mean, obviously you're into like the Western motif and, you know, country music, and you're you know, being in Las Vegas, that's a big part of that whole area. So where does the
Yeah.
inspiration, is it all from like day to day, or do you have like some kind of fictional stuff that you like rely back on that you read when you were younger, or a fan of?
I think all of that, right? So the way I grew up, my parents are older. Like I think my mom was like 36. My
Mm.
dad was like, I don't know, 42 or whatever when I was born. And so they were trying to like have a little girl and had twin boys, like whatever, you know,
Oops.
sucks for my dad, but um, rest in peace, Pops. But so they grew up, and they, like, my mom was raised out on a ranch with like a tiny little ranch house, walked to a little school thing, barely, like she had to go back and get a GED, so they only had school till like I don't even think sixth grade or whatever. My dad came from a little bit more of a established family here, but in the Las Vegas Valley. So we had a ranch like a couple hours north that my grandfather, that I'm named after, Stuart Henry. My middle name's Stewart, but people in the punk scene started calling me Stu Folsom, whatever. But so like my whole family is ingrained in like Western culture and kind of, you know, came from that background. So I grew up with, you know, we had horses and goats at our house. And while that's happening, there's like, you know, I have cousins that are pro rodeo
Mm.
riders, and like my whole family, you know, goes fishing and hunting, and all the kind of Western, like hillbilly things are like part of my life. But then also, because I was way younger, I had older brothers who maybe rebelling against that too. When they were in teenagers and going to college, I was also hearing Misfits,
Mm.
7 Seconds, and like skateboard kids are hanging out at my house. And we had a half pipe built because we had like a ranch style house that had a little bit of property. So all the like punk kids are hanging out skateboarding. And so I just kind of, when you grow up and you don't realize that this mashup of things is probably not too normal or prevalent,
No.
then I like fell in love with hardcore and punk. And so I love westerns, I love horror movies, and then all these things of like what make me who I am. And I like rodeo. We moved to Idaho, and like me and my twin brother and one of my older brothers was really heavy into rodeo at the time. And so where now I would think it would be weird if a kid who was like 14, like I don't know how old I was, 12 to like 16, that was like a punk kid and not a jock, was like, oh yeah, let's rodeo. Let's go ride like steers and like bareback horses and stuff. But it was fun because like we had a bunch of family that do stuff like that. And it's terrifying to ride rough stock of any sort. And it's also like a thing where like kind of like getting in a fist fight or something, there's like that adrenaline dump
Mm-hmm.
of like when you get on an animal that's in a chute that when they open it is going to try and buck you off and you could possibly get, stomped on and get your head caved in. Like I don't know what else you can do at that age, but for me, like that was a hell of a lot more exciting than, like playing Genesis or whatever the fuck,
I mean, I totally get that.
Earthworm Jim. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
no, I was playing Earthworm Jim. I wasn't riding fucking animals in a
Yeah.
rodeo by any means. And I don't even necessarily know how many people are in the middle of that Venn diagram that are punk kids that also ride. I mean, back then, I'm sure now with, music being like hardcore metal and punk being much bigger, I'm sure is a little overlap, but back in the day, I think you might have been like the one person in the overlap on that Venn diagram.
Yeah, and there was like when I was in high school, like I was in Pocatello, Idaho, and there was like, I mean, I'm being liberal. Maybe there were 10 kids into punk. You know
Mm.
what I mean? Like it wasn't a huge school or anything, but like one of the kids was like an amazing bull rider, went pro and like had a huge career that was in our class. There was a handful of punk kids. There was like one dude with spiky hair that, you know, I could talk to about Madball.
Mm.
There's one straight edge kid I knew from Idaho Falls. So like at the time, it was like on that cusp of internet wasn't around, and so like the freaks were kind of, I don't know, you were just freaky together, you know. I feel like I was really lucky in a way that you just don't know what you don't know. So like
Mm.
I've always been kind of a weird outsider, even with the outsiders. But when you don't know that, like you don't know, so you don't give a shit. You're just
Yeah.
like, well, yeah, I'm a punk kid, but I'm wearing like Wranglers to this show, and like I was just at a rodeo, you know. But I also love Descendants, and I can't wait to go to Warp Tour and see fucking Face to Face because I cannot stop listening to their new record,
Yeah.
you know.
There's a lot of like the Western world is really making a move into like hardcore. Like there's a lot of bands from Texas, a lot of bands from SoCal and Nevada and everywhere else in that little region that are
Yeah,
adopting the whole big belt buckle, tight Wranglers, and that whole like Western vibe. And again, I like a lot of that stuff because it's just unique and new, and it's interesting to see like where hardcore or metal even has its little fingertips, in.
yeah, and like I don't. I mean, I get it. Like people are who they are, you know, and people change, and so it's like if you grow up in a family and all the like macho men in your family are wearing belt buckles and like fishing and hunting, like you can be punk and turn your back on that. But if you're being true to yourself, probably you circle back at some point and you're like, well, this is kind of part of who I am too, you know?
Yeah.
And for me, like, my old band Folsom, like we took the name from a Johnny Cash song, like and shortened it from Far From Folsom to it ended up being Folsom, but like we were covering, I think almost every show we played after like 2005, because we did a cover of a Merle Haggard song on an EP. Like we were playing bastardized hardcore version of a Merle Haggard song back then. And anybody that toured with us and hung out with us, like as a friend group, we listened to way more like honky tonk and thrash metal and 90s Roadrunner bands than we ever did like early 2000s, whatever would have been popular, like
Yeah.
maybe more on the Converge side or like the metalcore tip that blew up after that. Like that was never stuff I was really into. So like me, I've always, because we would hang out at shows, go to the bar next door, shooting pool, jukebox, playing, Waylon Jennings and the Stones. I would always find the people in punk and hardcore that like that stuff anyways, because good music is good music, right? And
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the renaissance of like Western stuff, even though pop country is, I've been tuned out of it my whole life, really. And I feel like I connect with nothing of like the kind of hip hoppy make a list about Budweiser's tight jeans, mud truck, like list songs don't do it for me.
Yeah.
But like traditional honky tonk records, the outlaw stuff, all the singer songwriter stuff, going into like alt country stuff. I've been going to shows like that the entire time I've been a punk kid. So like I've had my finger on that pulse, and it's bigger than it's ever been. Hardcore is bigger than it's ever been. And so to me, the things that I love the most are massive right now. So I'm just glad that the shows are good and the bands can tour and like records come out that I love. So I'm here for it,
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely as big as it possibly has ever been. And I don't see it stopping in the near future. I was half hoping that you would tell me like you were obsessed with like something like Stephen King's Dark Tower, and that's kind of where your fictional writing came from, just because, that's like loosely based off of Clint Eastwood, so.
Yeah, that's so funny you say that. So this dude David, while we were making Eldorado, really, really nice dude. He hangs out with Sam, and he fucking asked me about if I'd ever read Dark Tower, and he's like, "Your whole thing here is just like screams Dark Tower to me," and I'm like, "No, I've never read it." I'm
oh
like,
my God, you have.
I like. Yeah, so he brought me a copy and gave it to me. He's like, "Here's a copy of this. This was the 20th anniversary." He went through and re-edited some stuff, I guess. And so I read it, and it was cool. Like I liked it, but I mean, you can't read everything, right?
No,
So
of
like
course
I
not.
read a lot of Louis L'Amour, and like I have all my favorite Western authors and horror authors, and I've read a lot of Stephen King, and I figured at some point I would read that, but I just never did.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I
pretty
took,
funny that you bring that one up.
I mean, yeah, I
came really late to that party, literally
Same.
like 6 months ago.
Same. I'm not like I think about the Dark Tower a lot because I don't know if you read the entire thing. It's like 8.5 books. There's like a 4.
I've just read the first one at this point.
You've got to do more than that. The first one is not the best one by far, but just go ahead. You can buy the whole series for like $20 on like eBay or something like that and just run through it, or audiobook, whatever. That like Stephen King became like my favorite writer just in the last couple of years because I just thoroughly enjoyed like going. I never read like thoroughly like that, but like Cujo was like fucking awesome. That was like one of the best books that I've read in a long time. And then I decided, I was like, damn, the Dark Tower is 8.5 books. So I was like, let's just trug along and see how far we get. But like, it is crazy because it is somewhat Western based. And then you start finding out that this guy in your head is just really the character from Good, Bad, and the Ugly, Clint Eastwood's character. Like you have that look, you have that feeling in your head. And then because he took forever to write the whole series, it's like 30 plus years, right? So like I often think about like people reading 1 or 2 or 3 books and then dying. And then the series is not like just of old age or natural causes, right? In real life. And then they don't even get to know how like the next 3 books go. And like you start reading it and you start, spoiler alert, there's different influences from like modern day things that Stephen pulls from. And you're like, when you're reading it, you're thinking about it in your head and you're like, isn't this like some Harry Potter type thing? And then it turns out that's exactly what he was going for. But it is a very unique story. And I was curious because obviously other people have been curious about the influence of that on SpiritWorld, but it's good to know. But yeah, you have like 7 books you need to like, it gets really good in the second one. It starts really being weird.
Yeah, I'm about to go to the library. I might go tonight because we got to go to we're flying to Miami Saturday and doing this cruise
Shiprocked,
show.
yeah, I was going to ask you about it.
What's that?
I said Shiprocked. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that cruise. But
yeah. So it'll be cool. But like I looked at the lineup of bands and I'm just not familiar with most of it. It's not like something I'm like there's a handful, but I was just like, you know what this is though? Perfect excuse to go get some good books and
You'll be
be chilling and get some reading done. Where
yep.
no phone, hopefully, no cell service, just be out on the high seas and do some reading, you
Yeah.
know?
I'm trying to look at the I'm looking at the lineup now. I mean, outside of Parkway Drive and like the Ghost Inside, I do know Silly Goose because they're just like the a new metal band that everyone or a new metal adjacent type band that everyone's kind of loving right now. But yeah,
Yeah, well, like the parking lot band or something playing outside. Is that them?
they were one of them. Yeah, there's been
Yeah,
a few
yeah.
bands, but
Like I'm familiar with some of the stuff, but it's just I'm not like a fan of things where it's like, sometimes you see a festival and you're like, oh yeah, I love this band's whole catalog.
yeah,
I'm the same thing, like Parkway Drive. I've seen their career and followed them a little bit. Ghost Inside's cool, but like a lot of this stuff, I'm just gonna be going in blind. Like, let's see how old Buck Cherry holds up. I don't know that I've ever got my cherry bucked, but I'm here for it.
man, the crazy bitches will love it. The crazy bitches on the
Yeah,
boat will love that one.
yeah. I don't know, but I'm sure there'll be some cool stuff.
Hey, it'll be great people watching. Nonetheless, I think a lot of these cruises are great for that. I think we posted a story like recently. I think there was a Lamb of God cruise where Hatebreed had like a hot tub circle pit. That was interesting, but
Yeah, see, I'm into that. If we'll see how the crowd is for ours, because I was at a show with Bad Cop at the
mm,
old Hard Rock pool a while back, and like I had my niece and we were circle pitting and had so many people going that it turned into a whirlpool where you didn't even have to swim. You could literally just kind of like body surf it.
yeah.
And so I have that. I don't know what the pool sitch is at Shiprock, but I'm like, if I can pull that off and get like the whirlpool circle pit, I need to get that checked off of my rocker bucket list.
I'm always curious about these kinds of things because obviously you're going to be on the boat the entire time, and not just you. Everyone on this lineup or everyone on the lineups will be on the boat the
Yeah.
entire time. I wonder, as far as like for a performer, how if it's weird because then you're stuck with people for like days that are, you know, fans of your music or maybe somewhat crazy about you, and it might be a little strange, right, to just be like forced to be like in captivity with them for a couple of days.
I think energy put out begets energy
Yeah,
returned.
okay.
And I'm like a normal dude. And if people are cool to me, I'm cool. Like, even like when we tour, like, I just do my thing. I don't know. I don't know that whole rock star like separate thing. I come from the school of like most of the people at the show are in bands and the promoters, anyways, we're all the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you see them all
So
the
for me,
time.
like, I don't think any of that's weird. And if we have some weird stalker, like, I got a pretty rough and tough, like, crew of dudes. Like, I'm not really worried about somebody like creeping, trying to. I guess being dudes, you don't have to worry about that. Like,
Right.
you want to stalk us, you want some dirty underwear, like, whatever, bro. Like,
Yeah, it's strange. A little
I
bit.
don't know. I think all that stuff, like, when you go to festivals, like, people are always nice to us. You might get somebody punishing you a little bit, but how hard is it to say, great meeting you? It's been a pleasure chatting, and then
Moving on.
disconnect.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been domesticated. I can communicate with anybody. Like, it doesn't offend me when people want to like tell me surface level, like people that are interested in art and live music, when they come up and are like gushing a little bit with half a head on. Like, I'm not insulted by that. It's like,
Mm,
be polite. Thanks for coming out and checking out, bands.
yeah.
Cool.
I want to ask one more question about your writing or your coming your novel type thing.
Yeah.
Is it going to be a novel, or have you ever like a graphic type novel or anything like that, or do you have a plan for it in your head?
Yeah. I've written a bunch of stuff, and I kind of, I have the outline of what it's going to be. So I don't know exactly the length and what will happen, because I know what the ending of it's going to be, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have the beginning, so I'll just fill it in. But I'm shooting for I want like a nice 300-page regular American novel. I mean, it'll be a horror western, but yeah, just like a real book, like a I don't know. I didn't go to school. I don't have
I get you.
I can't articulate what I'm doing, but I've read a lot of books. It's not going to be the great American novel, but I'm hoping that it'll be something somebody that's a fan of genre work and likes westerns and horror shit would read it and say, "Damn, that was good. Here, check this out."
Yeah, we'll definitely check it out when you ever get around to it. We do like review a couple books here and there because people in our world write books, so we try to review a couple here and there. You're a fan of art and whatnot, and you got a lot of posters back behind you. And the next question I have is kind of like the cover art for the albums, the Spirit World albums. Obviously, you have the Deathwestern artwork, and then you have the Heldrado artwork as well. But those seem like drastically different than the Pagan Rhythms artwork. Like I just kind of want you to kind of express a little bit on that because it just seems not more thought out. But obviously, like they're totally different themes, as far as the art is concerned on those albums.
Yeah, for sure. So Pagan Rhythms, because there was like a lockdown and stuff, I basically just punk rock collaged a cover of something that kind of felt to me like it fit with Pagan Rhythms, right? Little occulty, kind of Xeroxy, somewhat in the vein of what I like. But then when we re-released it, I thought about redoing the artwork because I thought it was the weakest point of that whole album, right? But then I'm like, I kind of think it's lame when people second guess themselves. Like that's a snapshot of like my graphic design and like attempt at something during a fucking weird lockdown under the gun. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm like, I'm proud of it in some sense. But then for the next record, like visually, I really want to do something that I like old school, get a record, get an LP. It's got nice big cover art. And I really like when somebody can put together a cool project with a cool album title, great artwork that you look at, and it doesn't necessarily look like anything else that's happening. And so with Deathwestern, like I was trying to find the right artist, and I went and ate lunch with James Bousema. He's from Vegas, and we were having some tacos and talking about stuff. And I was just like, I really like an orange and a like bright yellow kind of throwback to the like 60s
Right.
Western posters. And so I gave him a bunch of like shit to go off of, and then he gave me designs, and I thought he killed it, looked amazing. And one of my friends here, Piper Ferrari, she sings in a band called Roman Candle that has been pretty busy lately. She helped me do the layout on Deathwestern, and so the typography and the fonts and stuff, we worked together with that. And then for the new record, I wanted to do, there's a series of Western nocturnes that were popular in the like late 1800s, early 1900s, where basically it's a Western painter painting Western scenes of in the US, but they're at night, right? And so I gave a couple of them because they have these really nice color palettes of like cool blues and greens and kind of like way different than Deathwestern where it's bright orange and red and fire. And so I kind of gave him that idea. I'm like, I want this rider on this like edge of this cliff or a bluff, but I want a version of a nocturne, but with the details from my lyrical world, And so when he spun up his thing, then he added some things like the timepiece and some like the detail stuff on the cover art. But yeah, it's I you hit it on the head. I like artwork, so for me, it's like I have a label, like I have all the things to make a cool record that I'm proud of, and artwork is a big part of that. Like I came up looking at Hide Your Head, putting out shit and being like, maybe I don't love the band, but damn, this packaging in and of itself, the way they package the artwork, even Death Wish, you see people that really care, and you just say,
you're nailing it because like a lot of those records probably I would have never even given the time of day to, but because it was packaged so well, or the artwork on the because again, both those labels were really good they were like great in the early 2000s with that, and a lot like I wanted to like certain albums so much because I just wanted to like
Yeah.
have the album or to like use the album. So that is funny that you brought that particular thing up.
And the other point I'll mention with that is like heavy metal has this long tradition of great artwork, but then when you start paying attention to how that happens, a lot of it is you have heavy metal labels that license a piece of work from an artist because they can get it for whatever price point, but the art actually does not reflect anything inside of the record.
Hmm.
And so you may have like a Frank Frazetta piece or like some just gorgeous piece of artwork, and then you've got Molly Hatchet in there or whatever it may be, right?
Hmm.
And so like I grew up going to bookstores and record stores when they were still like where you go to consume art and get like physical media. And so I would go and look at like sci-fi, horror, Western books, and you gravitate towards like, oh wow, there's this killer Forgotten Realms book that has this amazing thing, or you see like a Conan the Destroyer with like a great cover, but then you read the book and the cover has nothing to do with it. And so for me, the perfect intersect is if you can create something that's in your own world of your art. Like for me, it's my band and this like weird world I have. I could go license something that sort of maybe fits the mold, but I think that's a cop out if you have the ability and can network with a great artist and like actually pull something of your own and put it there.
Yeah.
So the goal for me is to like hit the level of, and I can't do the packaging working with Century Media, like even the vinyl colors, like there's limitations.
Mm.
I would go way crazier if I was running the ship, but I'd probably bankrupt my make believe record label because of this. But like I'm trying to do all the things that I respect about bands, art, all of it at the highest level. So it's like for me, have the great artwork, but it has to be my actual, I don't want to just license some dude that had no idea who I was when they painted this 20 years ago.
Yeah.
To me, it may work and it may be the great album cover, but I would know that that's the weak way to do it.
Well, as someone who, like I said, I love album artwork and whatnot, and it's part of the whole process of like enjoying an album and holding it and blah 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 blah. Everyone says that. Everyone who's over 35 says the same thing, so it's all the same. But kudos to the artist on both records because I think they nailed it on both of them. They're very eye catching and, like you said, they intersect appropriately.
Yeah.
My last question on the artwork part of it is: are those like when the artist created it? Is it digitally or is it like did he physically paint something and it's just a photo or scan of that painting or?
So James, both of these works were digital, and so then I like showed him the reference stuff of what I liked, and most of that is oil painting stuff, but digitally is like kind of the make it look like a painting,
Mm-hmm.
but it's digital,
I mean, that shit's
and
hard
that's
to do still.
something that like it's very tough to get everything that you would do,
Mm-hmm.
So like because I talked to him about what do you think about painting, and it's like now you're talking about we need a hell of a lot more time and money and like
hours on hours. Yeah, I would assume.
Yeah, and like there's different like I've seen the drafts of the artwork, and it's like I get it. And I'm lucky, like because we're not a huge band. Like I don't have $40,000 to commission a world famous oil painter. Like I'm a long ways away from that. So I just feel blessed that I can hang out with somebody that I am actually friends with, grab some tacos, like we go to shows, see each other at the same gig, and like can put our heads together and make cool artwork. Like pretty fucking sick.
Well, like I said, it works. I want to end on this last little segment here. You mentioned, and you don't have to answer this question, obviously, because, like I said before, I try to fill in the gaps between the artist and the audience, so to speak. So you had mentioned earlier, full-time gig, you have a full-time job. Do you mind like telling everybody what you do or, what your career is outside of music?
Yeah, I keep the two separate, but I mean, I do, I've worked basically construction my whole adult life, usually like low voltage, everything from like cabling businesses and installing registers, switches, like all the data jacks I started out doing phone work, actually.
Okay.
That's how long ago it was. But so now I've kind of moved in to, I do process design improvement and do a lot of time and motion work and stuff for a big telecom company in the US. And so I got lucky that they stood up this group. We used to outsource it and hire like a third party company to do it. And so they stood this up during the pandemic. And I don't know why, for whatever reason, I applied for it and did it. And so then I'm able to work remote from my house. And like it allows me a lot of the financial freedom because it's a great gig. I've been with this place for 12 years. So um, it just really sets me up to have flexibility with where like I didn't take an advance for this record. And nothing personal with Century Media. It's just like the business way you sign a deal, 3 records, and the way these things work. Like I'm able to afford to pay my band, take all the money from the band, reinvest it, and then the money from my career, because I do pretty well. Like I'm able to live, have a home, like buy a van, do the things that I need to do. I'm not rich by any means, but I don't have kids personally.
Mm-hmm.
And it just allows me the freedom to, I'd rather be in a band that I got to work twice as long because I have a 9 to 5 and do things the way I'm proud of. And if it ever gets big enough where I felt like it was lucrative and I didn't need to work to maintain my lifestyle, great. But I really like the fact that I don't have considerations like that. Normally, a band would put out Deathwestern, and all 5 dudes would be like, yo, we got to do these tours, but now we all got to quit our jobs, and now we got to figure out how to run a business. And me, I'm like, and everyone I work with, I can be honest, because they're all really great, like booking agents, managers, and stuff. And I'm like it just comes from a different place, right? So I'm like, yes, we're gonna go do a big tour in the US when this album comes out, maybe do another one. But it's not a thing where it's like, yo, you got to keep us working 8 months out of the year.
Right.
We got to make it or break it and run it into the dirt till we hate each other and the band blows up. To me, longevity and making the records is number one. I've got 3 in the can, and I'd like to get 10. And
Okay.
consistency and great art kind of, I don't, you know what I mean? Like you'll end up somewhere. And I believe that if you do you at a high level and put a lot into it, most bands can't even make it far enough to figure out how the business side of it works and have a real life where you can have a partner and a family and a home and a career and balance your band. Like you're talking about 1% of bands probably.
Yeah.
And so I'm in that percent because I did it the hard way and built it myself. So yeah.
That's good though. That's a better thing. So you said you want to make 10 albums. You said you have 3 out, and you also kind of mentioned that the Century Media deal was 3. Does Pagans count as one of those 3, or do you have?
Yeah. When I
Okay.
did that deal, I made sure that that's number one, and then they had an option for 2 more. So our deal,
It's
I got to
fulfilled.
talk to them. Like they want to re-sign us, and we have a great relationship. And so I just I have some ideas of where I'm going and what I'm trying to do. And so at first it was easy because I DIY'd a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the questions that people had were, will you tour? Can you put out records? Will people care? You know what I mean? If
Of
you're going to
course.
get invested in, those are like the primary concerns, right? And so now at this point, it's like, yes, we have a track record. We've toured with all these great bands and played all these rooms, and people clearly fuck with my band, and we have our own momentum. And so I think it'll be a good time, probably this spring, to like sit down and say, what are the big goals? Where do I want to go? Talk to Century Media and figure out. Because to me, like doing project management and process design, like my career informs art in that sense too, where it's like if I don't have a clear direction of exactly where I want to be, then I probably shouldn't be talking to people about extending contracts that could possibly take 5 to 10 years to complete. And so
Yeah.
I think I know what I'm doing, but um, I'm very intentional. So yeah.
Interesting. Last question, then I'll cut you loose. But this is probably going to be a tough one to answer, or maybe not. Maybe I just might be overthinking it.
What?
What is it about Spirit World that, because you guys, don't actually play out that much, you do a handful of things throughout the year and whatnot, but what has made Spirit World as popular as it has been? And like, how do you guys get the tours that you are offered? Because obviously you've toured with a bunch of big names. You know, you like you said, Sepultura,
Yeah.
Obituary, and you played with Integrity the other year as well. You know, so like, why or how and why?
Well, I mean, the game's a game, right?
Right.
So, like, I won't bullshit you. Like, it's not a tough question for me to answer because, like, I live it. You know what I mean? Like, maybe for a kid or somebody that's faking it, like, has a tough time with stuff like this. But number one, you make a record in your room like I did, and if it's not good, no one cares.
Mm.
But if you make it and it's good, then people that are in this industry that love music and dedicate their life to it are like, I love this record. I wonder if they can tour. Maybe I can work with them. Maybe they're cool. And then I meet them and you connect on different things. So, like, our booking agent's great and willing to put us on shows. But then also, like, on the management side, like, if you want to do big boy stuff, it's not impossible to do it all yourself. But if you're working with people that are booking the headliner and you're also on their roster, then it's a lot easier to get connected, you know?
Mm.
And when you have, like, at one point, I had to make promises to people and say, I'm going to make records, I'm going to tour, we're going to be a good live band, we're going to do all these things. And I promise you, people will feel the love that I put into it. And so when you start doing that, then I think the songs, number one, probably are what people gravitate towards. Like Deathwestern came out, and I heard from a lot of people they loved it. They listened to it a shitload, and there's songs on that that I would say probably make us somewhat popular. You know,
Mm.
like it's the songs, the artwork's cool, and then on the live thing, because maybe we don't play out a lot because I say no to a lot of stuff that not a lot, but it's like more timing and schedule. So I think if you bands that play the same city 5 times in a year and play the same set list, me personally, like I go see my favorite bands every time they come to town. I think I try to, but like I know we don't tour a lot, so when we come, I think people are excited, and I think that not if you don't have a day job, you can't sit at home, right?
Right.
But when your life is pretty set as is, like I think it probably helps. Like I know we didn't tour much last year at all. I think we did like 3 shows. So everywhere we go, nobody's going to be sick of us. And I would dare to say they might actually come out to see us because maybe now people realize like I'm not going to live in a van. Like I'm not about that life.
Yeah.
So if you want to come see us, like it may be a year or two before we come back, depending on things. And not that I don't like to tour. It's just I'm being honest here.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? You can tell the bands that are going to be, they're doing the circle until the van and the wheels fall off and the band either makes it or it dies, you know?
Yeah, a lot of those guys are a lot younger though too, so they can.
Yeah,
They can
and
do that.
if I was younger, like I tried that, and like it's great for life experience. But I'm not going to bullshit anybody and say we're going to hit the pavement like that because I wouldn't do that if you. I don't care what the guarantees are. You know, like, that's
Yeah,
not
no.
like the. You know what I mean?
I
Like you
do,
know what you know who
100%.
you are when you grow up, and like I know who I am, and I want to do impactful shows and cool shit. But I also when we tour in a van and we keep up with these bus tours and like we leave. I drive all night. We
Mm.
sleep in a rest stop. We go to Planet Fitness. Everybody showers. We work out because we try to take care of ourselves. We go load in, repeat for 30 days.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've been to a Planet Fitness in fucking Toronto, but they have a whole, like, their level of, like, pubes in the shower and the
Different.
fucking disgust. I have a nice house. I got a bathroom with only my pubes. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
go to the gym. I go to the gym down the street, and I know what goes on in the showering, locker room area. Some things are a little strange. You might find one or two people in a stall every now and then. I get it. I understand. It's a little strange, a little weird. I myself, like, we are sponsoring the Horse the Band 20-year mechanical hand run, that's going to be on the West Coast. And like, we're going to be joining them for that like 10-day run. And I haven't done that kind of thing in like fucking 20 years with like a band or whatever, let alone Horse the Band, who like I've seen their DVDs throughout, the years, and I can only imagine what.
What's their bass player's name?
Depends on the one that they have currently.
I'm drawing a blank, but one of those dudes, I don't know why he was there, but he was kicking in the studio when we were doing El Dorado.
Where'd you record it at? You said L.A.?
Fremont, California.
Was it David, the guitar player?
I thought he brought a bass guitar with him. I don't know, but anyways, doesn't matter. Really cool guy.
Yeah.
Like I never really I saw that band a few times back in the day, but it was cool he was there while we were doing something. Maybe I don't know what we were working on, but it's just one of those random things. But yeah.
He's just there in the corner. But yeah.
Yeah, just hanging out, shooting the shit.
That's cool. Well, Stu, I appreciate the time and everything. How many custom suits do you guys have for the road?
I just did new ones for this album campaign, and so everybody in the band has one, and then it sucks, bro. Like it looks great and it's cool, but sometimes, and my band will tell you, like my great ideas, it's like, no, we're gonna look like old 50s like nudie suits. It'll be great. But they're hot as balls. They get drenched in sweat, and we spend half our time on tour trying to get those things hung up and dry enough so that when you put them on, you don't just want to kill yourself. And so they're terribly expensive. They're very tough to maintain. Nobody will wash them. I can't take them to a dry cleaner. The sweet lady is always like, no, too nice. We'll fuck it up. Can't go through the machine. I don't want it.
I was going to say laundromats and dry cleaners got to hate to see you guys coming, but I can understand.
Yeah, so we got to do it all by hand. And anybody that's toured and all the bands that get to just play in black shirts and, bless their hearts, because I don't know. Maybe the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones feel my pain, but like it sucks.
I think you and the El Mariachi of the Bronx should go on tour. That'd be a good little tour package. And you can invite the Boss Tones too, and everyone can just like suit it up on stage.
Love those bands. Yeah, like I think there's something to be said of like it's Guar here, at the top, and then you got like anybody that wears a nice suit, and then you get down to like the same black cutoff T-shirt. So, but I couldn't do it. Like I said, the attention to detail. I could be in a band. We could all wear long sleeves, and maybe the band would be cool. But like, I want nudie suits, and like I want to have a visually. Just like the artwork, I want the live show to be a one-of-one situation that people are like, what the fuck am I looking at? Weird.
Yeah. Well, hey, you know what I mean? You gotta hurt to, sometimes you gotta hurt to, prove your point. And I think that you guys, are doing that on stage when you play live. So, Stu, again, thank you for your time today, brother. El Dorado's coming out March 12th on Century Media. You can go check out. They have the single out now, but by all means, I think fans will thoroughly enjoy the new album, and I think you will actually increase your fan base on this particular one. Not because you're missing out on 80% of the dive bombs, just because I think the songwriting and everything comes together very well. It's a nice package, and I'm sure the package for the album will be even better. So it's like a nice little bow around all of it.
Yeah, well, thank you for the time, the kind words. And I read Lambgoat all the time. And the comments, like, I'm not a troll. I don't post on anything. But I got to say, we've been very blessed. We have got very little hate in the comments for, I would have assumed my band having, like, the aesthetic we do and really being kind of an artsy theater kid project. I figured we would just get fucking mercilessly destroyed. So thank you to all the commenters for being basically pretty polite to us. Like, not that I would care, but Well,
I think you've affected the trajectory of that going forward. So I'm sure you'll get some.
And it's fine. Like if I ruined it and they listen to this and we're fucked, like I'll eat it because I get the comedy in it too. Like it doesn't hurt my feelings. Yeah. If you guys were so funny, you'd fucking, whatever it is. Like I go for the comments, and the more ignorant, the better. And so if I just ruined it, I'll eat that. Like, it's okay.
It's all good. I appreciate you for being understanding and enjoying those parts of the website. We all agree and we all enjoy those, parts of the website, but I get why people have, reservations about it. But hey,
And the thing, when people get upset, it's probably because it's a little true. So when people talk shit on my band, like I know like some of it's true, but I can say I come from a good place. I'm one of you underground fucking lifers, and I'm trying real hard. So if you can do better, you've got a basement, like
they
do your own
definitely
fucking
do.
band, you
They
know?
definitely got a basement. They're living in them all the time, just
Yeah.
commenting anonymously.
Scroll in the basement, stop commenting, and write your own riffs. If mine sucks so bad, like I believe in you, my friend.
Yeah.
Like you can do it because I did it. Like, and you'll tour with your favorite bands if you write a good enough riff.
And then
So
people will make fun of your band on Lambgoat if you do well enough.
it is. So it's a sign of respect to even be getting your press shit out there to get the shit talked. So there you go.
I do think
know?
it is. I think if people weren't talking shit, I think if we put an article out and you don't get comments on your article, that is far more telling than if you
Yeah,
get comments.
that is more hurtful than
No
a bunch of people. Because I was getting sent stuff like on the song we released because I'm playing acoustic guitar, like, and there was some like hardcore Reddit stuff that, like, friends of mine are funny. We've all been around, so like they're texting me this shit, and it's like, ugh, poop from butt and whatever, and it's like, I get it, but the hardcore kid probably this isn't the record for them. They can grab the heavy songs and put on a playlist, but
Yeah.
are they going to listen to the whole thing and get it? Maybe not, but that's okay.
It is okay, Stu, and I think it'll be okay for the basement dweller as well. And well, maybe not, but we don't necessarily have to care about that person. But either way, I appreciate.
I
your
care
time.
about them. I hope they rip everybody a new one because I love it. I really,
They are online.
it's
They're
good
ripping
laugh.
it online. They're not riffing it online. You know what I mean? They're not. It is
Yeah,
what
yeah.
it is.
Well, thanks for the time, my dude.
No, you're good, bro. You're not playing any other shows in Florida around the Shiprock thing, right? You're just going to Miami and then getting out of there?
No, we're just doing there was like a radius clause, and like I was trying to do it, but then I'd have to like rent a vehicle, and we're only flying out with like the bare minimum to play
Gotcha.
the fest stuff, so.
Yeah. Well, I'm about
Also too lazy, bro. Too lazy to do the
I feel
fucking
you.
like
Van life.
know.
We're in Jacksonville, so like 6 hours away from Miami, but I was just curious.
Yeah, we're are we offline now? Is this
No, but I'll cut it off now so you don't have to leak any of the information you're probably going to tell. So again,
Yeah.
thank you for your time. And new album March 12th.